Welcome to Peak, Train Like a Girl, a podcast by girls in sport for girls and coaches in sport. We are so glad you are here. I have to tell you, I know we talked about this at the intro last week, but we are getting so much momentum. It is absolutely amazing. And the other thing that's been super incredible is I'm getting a lot of feedback from both middle school and high school coaches saying that they're playing our podcasts at practices. So we know that we are providing information and education and conversation that people want and need to hear. I know Caitlin was just in traveling again for the weekend. Caitlin, how was your holiday weekend?
Yeah, thank you so much. I was able to go home for the weekend, get some rest and relaxation, and now it's great to be back. I'm really excited for our episode today.
Yeah, me too. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. We've done some updates on the app. Here on the podcast, we actually have a new host that's going to be coming in as Caitlin starts to navigate out and finish her collegiate season and all the work that she's doing there. So we're excited to get you filled in on that. We've done a lot of updates on the app. So make sure you're checking us out if you ever have any questions. Just drop us a DM either on Instagram or here on Podbean. We do our very best to get back to everybody within 24 hours. So I cannot wait to introduce you to our next guest. Coach Nev is out of Homewood, Alabama. She runs and operates a platform called Blockout Academy for volleyball players. This is actually the first volleyball person and volleyball coach we've had on. So
Wow.
I'm so excited to have you because I have to tell you, it is one of the most exciting sports to watch, period. Do you agree?
I agree because it's so funny. I think I even had post about it. Nobody can watch volleyball with me in a room because I get so on the edge. It's no matter who plays, it could be two random teams. I mean, my palms would be sweating. Like I'm on the edge of the seat. It is really, it's pretty cool sport. It
It
really is.
It is. I've seen it now at the high school level, pretty competitive, but I've also watched it at the collegiate level, and it is nonstop action. So if you like action, volleyball is definitely the sport for you. So, Coach Nev, before we get into your story, are you ready to get a little warmed up with us?
Yeah, come on,
All
bring
right.
it.
Okay. 4-star hotel or camping?
4-star hotel camping.
Oh, I like it. Okay. Road trip or plane?
Road trip.
Okay. Winter or summer Olympics?
Summer.
Now, is volleyball in winter or summer? I don't even know that.
It's summer. I don't know. Yeah, summer. It's Olympic sport. It's during Summer Olympics. So it's
Okay.
closed. It's indoor.
Got it. Okay. And then is beach volleyball and indoor volleyball, they're two different sports in the Olympics, right?
Right. There are two different sports and they're outside normally. I'm not too keeping up with the trends in sand volleyball. It's growing tremendously as well. I'm sure they have some indoor facilities, but I think as far as Olympics, it's outside. Now, given location, I'm sure they have a backup in a case of weather, but it's supposed to be outside.
Okay, that's super fun.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help us get through all that. Okay, one last question that we love to ask all of our guests: lipstick or lip balm?
Lipstick.
Ooh, I love that. Is there a specific color?
I actually have, this is right away. I love to tell stories. So I have my Russian mom in America. She's an older, she's professor down at UAB and she loves jewelry and she loves lipstick. So if you see me with jewels, if you see me with lipstick, every time she comes see me, I get a bag of different color lipsticks. And recently she gave me, it's called the pink salt, and I just love it. Like I just love it.
I love that.
Yeah,
And you know what's so interesting is that volleyball coaches, I coach cross country and track, so we're in practical gear all the time. Like, if it's weather, we're just dressing for the weather. But I noticed that volleyball coaches, they really dress up to be on the bench.
yeah, it's kind of different. Like, and again, like now with more public eye, I think because we're streaming more games than maybe 10 years ago and 15, and it's really catching momentum. So I'm sure there is it's interesting to see. I think actually Penn State coach, she was pretty laid back the year they won championship. She was kind of in her sport clothes. Then you see Nebraska coach, she wears her kind of jackets with a star. But then you'll see differences. Like for me, I'm known as a coach in a skirt. So now when the spring has come, I always wear skirts. I don't wear shorts. And then in the winter, I wear my leggings and some like wider pants, but I am the coach in a skirt. And it's interesting because the girls are also picking up on that. And in my facility, a lot of girls wear skirts to practices.
I love that.
Yeah.
And again, it just we'll get into that, but it gives autonomy, right? That we don't have
Yes.
to do it the way it was done before, and we don't have to look like a boy, and it
Yeah.
gives even over uniforms, right? Like
Yeah.
because a lot of times uniforms are sexualized, right? And this way
Sure.
it gives the girl, the athlete, the autonomy to wear what they feel comfortable in. So we'll make
Yeah.
sure we get into that. But before we dive into any of those questions, I'd love for you just to share your story. What's your story of being a girl in sport? You can start as early or as late as you want.
Sure. So if you hear by my accent, I've got to United States from Serbia, like straight to college. So I played volleyball at UAB for 4 years, had a pretty solid career, finished up in All American honorable mention, setter of the Conference USA in 2008. So pretty accomplished as far as career. At a time we didn't have pro league over here. To go back home to do a pro was not really, I felt like I already got invested my foot in United States, so I wanted to stay. So that was the end of playing, but beginning of coaching. And kind of I always, when I got to United States, because we're coming from very rich Olympic culture, so coaching in Serbia is just, you're coached by what I call the OGs, like really beyond knowledgeable former Olympic athletes, like with a high, I mean, respect and knowledge. It's not just, a girl that is, still training and coaching. I'm talking, those are well respected coaches. So then when I got to United States, you know, I was almost blown away. What a big country, but I felt like fundamentals are not very good. And there was another two girls that came with me. So entire time we were kind of shocked by just low level of fundamental training. So therefore I opened my academy pretty rapidly because I said these girls need some Serbian school of volleyball. They need some standard. They need fundamentals. And that's how my academy started. And kind of that's in a really 20 years in a nutshell.
Wow. Coach Nev, can you expand more on the specific fundamentals, the ideologies that you wanted to
Sure.
bring to your academy?
Sure. So, okay, this is how my brain sees it, looks at it. So I always say before you start playing volleyball, you should be just learning skill and movement for a couple of years
Oh, wait,
consistently.
we might have to stop the whole podcast with that. You're speaking my language. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
So,
I was like, oh,
yeah.
did I say something?
Oh no, that is
So,
so spot on.
so I feel like, and again, this is different. Again, it's a different country. It's a different, and I culturally understand the differences and kind of how spread out it is. But in America, you play some rec league, and that's game. Like you have maybe a couple of practices. I look at my kid; she's in some call it rec level soccer team. They have twice practice for 2 weeks, and then they start games. I'm like, how can you? How can this be of any quality? And I know how little experience she has. And again, there's benefit to it of, I'm being active, I'm being interested in sport. But what I've seen is that we start those rec leagues, they're game oriented. And then you go to the middle school that is again very short season. And again, you don't have much time to develop. A lot of times if we dive deeper, coaches don't really have knowledge to develop. But it's more timing too. And then they go into high school, and now you got to make JV, you got to make varsity, and you have also pressure of recruiting. So what I would call, it's a short time. They start about sixth grade, and I'm talking volleyball because that's my lens. But they start volleyball at call it sixth grade, maybe fifth grade, and I'm talking Alabama, in California, probably different. But they start fairly late. 12 is late to start volleyball in my book. And then they don't get any fundamentals. It's just game, game, game. And it's, to me, spread out front row, back row. You're tall, you're hitter, you're short, you're passer. So, in my view, in my lens, and I'm not saying I'm all right, but just the lens that we've been trained with, it's just butchered. Like, it's not conducive to long term development. So, it's like kind of we start late and we want to develop quick because the recruiting is fairly quick. So it's all game focused. And that's what we've seen, like Serbians coming to America, even Brazilians be like, just that fundamental. And then when you watch high level volleyball, like I'm always blown away. And again, I'll use reference of Serbia. Do you know how tiny Serbia is? I think we have as many people in city of Houston, Texas, yet we beat United States on a world championship finals back to back. How is that even possible? With the resources, right? And I just say very simply, it's fundamentals. Because when you get to that level, that confidence, that, swag, that development, that the errors, they will be in your fundamentals. So now I'm like extremely passionate about it. And I always feel like every day I say I'm David against Goliath. I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna preach, and I hope somebody hears me. So that's kind of just my view and perspective, and I'm sure it's on all sports. But again, if we're looking at a pros, if we listen to Kobe Bryant, if we listen to, Michael Jordan, it's back to those basic things: the good dribbling, the good like boring old stuff. I don't know how that translates in a track and field. I'm sure the mechanics of movement that we want to skip because it's not fun, and we skip it, and then it is going to bite us sooner or later, in my opinion.
Yeah, and not just with performance, it bites
Yeah.
you with injury rate. The injury rates go up,
Yes.
right? So I
Yes.
think it's very interesting because it may not seem like it correlates directly with cross country or a track and field athlete. Certainly with a field, you can definitely, with a thrower or a jumper, you can see that make more sense. But the mechanics are so important, and back to the basics is one thing where you're learning the basics of, how to dribble, how to shoot, how to spike, how to serve, whatever those things are, and breaking it down. And you're right. Those things aren't fun, and you don't build fitness by learning how to serve a volleyball or learning how to come out of the blocks for the 100 in track. That is not where you're building fitness, but you are building a skill set. But more than that, talking about the mechanics of movement, that is where we see such increase of injury. And I know for volleyball, at least in the world where I'm at, the number of young athletes who have shoulder injuries is like staggering in volleyball. And I'm like, is that because they're being exposed to too much too soon at a too young age? Or is it because the mechanics of the movement, the strength, the muscle patterning isn't good? I mean, do you have a thought there?
So my husband is high level strength and conditioning coach as well. So
Okay.
we talk about those things. So I think it's rather complex. It's not, we always try to find where is to blame.
Yeah.
I do think kids are sedentary, and we are then going from sitting indoor, no sun, no movement, no playing outside like we used to, no climbing trees, no uneven surfaces, to adult driven, we're going to do 1-2 hours of this, then we're going to go to next sport, then we're going to, I don't know, it just, to me, it's very artificial. So you go from zero to hero. And I think some of that is going to be obviously poor mechanics, some are going to be overused. But again, for me, growing up the way I did, I competed as a maybe 10, 12-year-old kid in front of our buildings with grown men. We would play pickup basketball.
Sure.
We would play soccer. And that was like most of our days. You didn't have phones, you didn't have iPads. So my first injury was I think, injury that I can recall. I did sprain ankle once that was pure like freak accident, like once when I was maybe in high school. That's the only injury I can recall through high school that I had to sit out, and it wasn't long. And my first injury in college was a stress fracture in a foot, and then my senior year was a labrum tear on the shoulder. But I don't know. These days we have a middle school kids, and I don't know. That's also very touchy subject. I don't know if we're also differentiate the injury at this point
Mm,
or overuse, like such as we see a lot of tendonitis, a
right.
lot of just growth, develop aches and pains that I don't know what's really classifying as an injury and what's kind of more
A normal ache and pain.
right ache
Yeah.
and pain that you're gonna
Yeah.
work through it. You're gonna, where are you in season, where are you in your cycle,
Yeah.
where are you in your mind. So I think that's uh, such a broad topic that we can now take. And where is the nutrition and where is the sleep? I
Yeah.
mean, let's talk about that. I homeschool my kids. So they go to bed by 9 o'clock, lights are out, but I see they sleep till about 7:30, 8 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
That's 11 hour. With the kids, they're in middle school and high school in sports. They might not get home till like 10:30, 11. And again, my kids don't have phones, don't have any electronics.
Right.
We don't watch TV. So it's like lights out. If the kid is in a bed, call it at 11, and they got to get up at 5 or 6, I think they're chronically tired.
Agreed.
And we're not controlling their nutrition. I mean, let's
Yeah.
open that gate. So I think those injuries now, it's not one kind of villain over there. I think it's a specter of like kind of like ingredients. They're just mess waiting to be unleashed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think everything you're saying is what we're here to talk about. It is everything that we stand for. I mean, prioritize sleep, and once you take sleep out of the equation, then you work everything else in. I just was having the conversation with one of my high performing athletes yesterday, and she, and again, not to be critical, but just having these open conversations, and she's like, "You know what? I've been so good. I'm committed to 7.5 hours of sleep, and I'm doing that." And I paused and I said, "You know what? That is awesome. But baseline is 8 hours. So you're not even hitting the minimum requirement." And I think that most high performing athletes, and she's a senior, so she's older. Her body is working hard. She's got, big muscles, and, she's got a big workload. And like the minimum to me is 10 hours.
Yeah.
And is that really realistic in high school? I think you're exactly right. By the time you take away the phones and the scrolling and the TV and all of those other things, I think there is a world where kids can get between 8 and 10 hours of sleep. And that is the bare minimum. I do believe. And nutrition is, I think, a super tough one. In a sport like mine, we're focused mostly on getting as many calories into these athletes as possible. They're notoriously underfueled. Some of that is because they're getting up at, like you said, 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and they're not getting home until, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night some nights. Like, when do these kids really have time to eat? Like,
Right.
it gets difficult, right? So I agree with you. I think it's a complex conversation, but I think that if we can go back to understanding a lot of what you said, which is also how I grew up, is that spending time, moving in different environments, whether that's playing a pickup soccer game or, playing on the playground with friends or, going to the swimming pool and doing whatever. I mean, like, just not so structured and so organized where you're organically moving and the body is developing coordination and different muscles at that point. And the brain and the body then begin to function together, right? And so it's not so scripted and it's not so organized. And if they're getting that type of movement pattern outside, you can spend more time focusing on the fundamentals, like the dribbling and stuff like that, because they're getting that movement outside of, practice anyways. And so I think you're right. It's more than one thing and it is complex, but I do think there are some things that we could be doing better. If you were talking to a caretaker or a coach of a middle school or high school athlete, what would be 2 or 3 tips focused specifically on this, getting back to the fundamentals or understanding the mechanics of movement? What would be 2 or 3 tips you would give them?
So just to make sure let me say this. First, I would say fundamentals before fundamentals. So that's
Okay.
fundamentals to build fundamentals, sleep, nutrition, being outside, being on the sun, being active. That's before anything else. And then three things that I would focus on. Say that again. Is it like volleyball related? Just
Yeah,
some.
yeah, be volleyball related. Yeah, what would be three things that you would to help caretakers or coaches focus on the mechanics of movement? What would be three tips?
Sure. So, number one, just be well knowledgeable how to teach it, right? And incorporate that in some practices or encourage kids to get it done on their own or have a routine that you're going through with mechanics that is part of. I always say my warm ups are a little bit brain teasers, a little bit movement, and a little bit fundamentals.
Love
So instead of like having like just run up and down, dynamic warm up. I say nobody's doing it well. Like they're just kind of like stretching something, but they're not locked in. Like I give them maybe a game or something that they have to incorporate. Again, thinking, for instance, I was doing in my academy, it's interesting how that works. Like a warm up relays that on the opposite side of the court, I put different color cones and mix them up, and then they got to run and they got to solve the Rubik's Cube. So they got to line up all the cones in the same color. So, and every person can just exchange two cones. So then now they got to think and then they got to run back. So they're competing. So just to get a little bit creative, how to get those fundamentals, because they're boring, into something that is maybe fun. So that's what I would say. And okay, this is a big one for me. I think we're boxing in kids too quickly in the positions, especially in volleyball. So, and again, because we can't control that growth, some kids grow out by sixth grade and reach their maybe even max height. And then others don't start growing till like ninth grade. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say I'm going to give plain example. If you're, call it short for the grand scheme of things, like you can't reach above the net, you have so little time, they're training you just to pass. You're DS, you're passer. But the girl that is tall at sixth grade, she's a middle. Although when we look at her, kind of like you can see that she's never going to be a middle long term, and it's okay, but we're not developing all fundamentals. So this is the crucial thing, those first 2 years of the development. And yes, we got to do some positional work, obviously, but to have practices or at least first part that every girl has to pass, has to set, has to serve, has to know hitting footwork. Like I would get a player that is varsity level, call it passer, they don't know hitting footwork. I'm like, you're a volleyball player, man. So I go, this was my little pyramid, and that will help. So I have a person number one. So we treat you as a person,
Love
and
that.
then as an athlete, what makes a good athlete? And we talk about movement, mechanics, explosiveness, mentality. So person, athlete, then volleyball player, and then a position. And then I feel like we're just flipping it upside down. It's position, then maybe somewhere along the line volleyball player, and then some along the line athlete, and then person that we don't even get to the person. So it's kind of, I would flip it. I hope
Yeah,
this was
that's
good.
really good. No, I mean, that is like complete mic drop. I mean, I love that because we believe that we are more than an athlete, we're more than a number. But I love the way you broke that down so easily. First, you're a person, then you're an athlete, then you're a volleyball player, then you're a position. And you're exactly right, particularly at younger ages, even depending on birthdays. If you have an earlier birthday and you're in
Mm.
some of these youth programs, you are going to be more developed. It's
Yeah.
12 months. You mean
Yeah.
you and I both know we've raised kids. A 12-year-old looks much different than an almost 13-year-old. Those
Hmm.
differences become much smaller when you're 23 or 24, but those differences are impactful for these young kids. And to exclude kids from being able to compete and play because they simply aren't as developed as the next kid is something we are also trying to change. I could talk to you forever. And so I want to have you on
Hmm.
again, but I want to like switch gears here just a little
Sure,
before
sure.
we switch down. I loved, I went back. So first of all, you have a BA in psychology, right? And an MA in clinical nutrition. So you're
Right.
super well educated. So obviously that comes into a lot of your coaching. I love that you talk about that a coach's job is bigger than the wins and losses. It's about shaping people. And I think that you really pointed that out in that pyramid that we sometimes get reversed. But I think you also do it when you're talking about conflict that can be caused or happen between athlete and coach. And you talk about it because we have a lack of clear standards and lack of clear consequences and lack of clear communication. If we did that better, we'd have less conflict. Can you talk a few minutes about that before we get cooled down?
Sure. I reflect on the things, and God knows I don't do it perfectly, and I'm hothead, fierce competitor, and I'm not easy to deal with. But I don't compromise on discipline and standards. And I feel
Mm,
like I have a little bit because of the pressure. So, because these days we're labeled either hard coach or a soft coach or this and that. So, it's kind of we're starting to lose a little bit balance there. And what I'm trying to do better is really set the tone, which I always felt I've done well, but obviously not well enough because some of those issues keep coming up. Like, for instance, if we're tardy, you're coming in 10 minutes in, we started practice, you didn't warm up, you're bringing different energy. You, no. So I need to be more specific. Look, if you're going to be late, just don't come.
mm,
Like, because it affects everybody. And I know that's not hard because there are things and we're all busy and things have happened and kids don't drive. But I think those things were there back in the past. Somehow, where did they get lost?
mm,
Right. So that's what I said. My academy goes with a hashtag no excuses. That's all over on my shirts. And my husband always reminds me, is like, well, Nav, you say no excuses, but you're allowing them because we
mm,
feel kind of put in a corner. You don't want to be that mean coach that is like, well, you're late, get out. But then I feel and I look back, I was like, maybe that's exactly what it's needed. And it has to be communicated. Hey guys, I have a, 5-minute rule or 2-minute rule. If you are more than 2 minutes late, door to the gym is locked. You miss your window. And it wouldn't take a long time. It would just take enforcing. Same thing on the discipline in practice. Like I've spent, and again, I'm not a coach that kids run over. When I'm in a gym, like kids know you can't just do anything with Coach Neves in a gym. But with that being said, because there is that, for instance, kids are completely unfocused. And there was a Serbian coach that wrote about this, backed up by psychologists too. Like, at which point are we now starting to use diagnosis as an excuse? If the kid is being rude, if the kid is not listening, if kid is being distraction, we can go in, hey, they have ADD, ADHD. I understand that, but this is pure behavior, right? If I'm talking, you're listening. That's all only thing I'm asking. So I think we're getting a little bit pushed in a corner by what's being allowed. And I don't also know what's being allowed in a school. I think it's a similar thing. So I think us as adults are losing a little bit, maybe edge to really be firm on some things because we're getting a big pushback.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is something I know I can do better at. And it's something that I struggle with. But something you said I really connected with is that if we're making excuses for someone's behavior, it also means that somebody else isn't getting the experience they want.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that,
No, absolutely. So, oh man, big topic. I've just done 2 podcasts, and I think this is maybe another episode. I think this is also different expectation, and I've actually built just last week. I'm about to release it. Literally a course for parents, a course for parents to educate about travel ball, travel teams. Is like, why are we doing it? Because what happens if we have 5 kids, they're there to get activity, be social, kind of make excuses. And now we're with 5 people who are greedy. They want to go to a next level. They have high drive. They're really locked in. It becomes really messy, really quick. And it becomes poor experience because here I'm spending most of my time suiting the five they're not paying attention. So I'm not giving my attention to five that want to perform.
Yeah, I think that that's so tricky. And I think it's easier in a private academy,
Yes.
more challenging in a public school. But I know that that is something I can do better at. And I love that you talked about that teaching the work ethic, the resilience, confidence, respect, and that you want athletes to walk away with a stronger mind and body.
Yes. But
Yeah.
to do those things, we're gonna have tough conversations. We're gonna have tough practices. We're gonna have some no's. We're gonna have some tears. It's I think that's where the disconnect is. And I think I make one post and I said we are confusing a little bit the word development and competitive, because a lot of times, and the word positive too. So I think what it has come down to, that a positive is just yelling good job and allowing everything. That's positive. To me, that's not positive. That's letting kids down.
Hmm.
To me, positive is this is how we do things. This is the agreement. This is the standard. This is I'm gonna hold you onto this, and I'm gonna hold you onto this when it's hard. We do it in my family. Like we have a farm. My kids homeschool. Like it's brutal if you don't do good job feeding the animals or taking care of them. They will die.
Yeah.
You have to live with it. You know what I mean? So I think the positive is kind of getting a little bit diluted to what is actually positive, and then what is actually development. Is development just saving kids from telling them, "Hey, when I talk, you listen and get a little bit sharp with my voice," because that's being heard as she's yelling at me. I'm like, "No, you need to listen. I listen to you." So it gets a little bit diluted. And that's the best word that I can say, because we're throwing these words, but are we really behind what development truly is? Because development to me is, and I studied John Maxwell a lot. I mean, he's coming with a new book on a failure, on a failing forward, his previous book. Like development to me is all of the above. It's the tears, it's the breakdown, it's the feeling not just good all the time. It's harvesting the lessons from some struggles. It's injury and overcoming it. It's being benched and, earning your spot back. To me, that's development. But I think we're getting a little bit to development means make everybody happy.
Hmm.
And happiness, we know that it's a very, you know, it fizzles out quickly. I'm happy one moment, I'm sad next moment. So especially working with kids, they can be happy and sad in 1 hour about 15 times.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think happy is an overused word, and that I don't strive for happiness personally or professionally. And I hope my kids, athletes, aren't striving to that either. Hey, Caitlin, do you have anything you want to add before we cool down?
Not specifically any more questions, but Coach Nev, listening to your work ethic, the way that you prioritize discipline, and especially how you prioritize person over just a position or a sport, it seriously is so important, not only on a baseline level for all athletes, but for injuries specifically, having those fundamental movements and health is so beneficial for your athletes. So I'm so glad that they're getting such amazing quality of coaching.
Sure. I mean, that's again, I think as the coaches, we're constantly trying to evolve, kind of see the problem, navigate through things, and try to offer solutions. And I think in that process, also we're getting a little bit kind of pressure even on our side to do things perfectly. And we are going back and forward, kind of what and just encouragement to every coach, kind of keep trying things, keep evolving, keep learning as the culture shifts, as generations shift. We're not going to get it right all the time. You're going to lose some, you're going to win some. You're not going to align with everybody. But you got to know your standards. You got to know like what you stand for, and you got to really, really stick to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I took about 3 pages of notes here. I I knew that I was going to enjoy this conversation, but you really have given me an opportunity to rethink a couple of things about me and my coaching style. I think there's things that I do super well, and there's things that I think I can do better. And and again, going back to the standards and to be clear about that. And I'm with you. I think that when I have conflict within our team, it is because I've been clear about the standards, but I'm not clear about the consequences. And that creates the conflict. And I think that that's something I am going to rethink. And I agree with you. We can only do our best, and we are going to get it right a lot of the times, and sometimes we're not going to get it right. And I think the other thing that we have to realize as coaches and as professionals is that we are not going to be the right fit for everybody. But I also think that there's some learning lessons there. I mean, when you get outside of athletics, which is why we see so much leadership once you are in the working world, because with former athletes, you're always going to have to work with people you don't necessarily like or get along with or agree with. And, it's kind of like suck it up, buttercup. Like you're going to have to figure that out. And so I think that a really good lesson sometimes for caretakers and athletes is that sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do, or sometimes you're going to work with coaches that may not be your cup of tea, but that doesn't mean you don't have the opportunity to learn from them. And I think that's sometimes what we get wrong. We pull our kids out of things too quickly because things get a little more challenging. Do you think that's true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had it happen this season, and then it's like, and then that's where I'm also writing to coaches. I'm like, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean you've done something wrong. That just mean at that time you're just not aligned well, and you reflect on it. And I think as a coaches, we reflect more than anybody else. I know we lose
Yeah.
sleep. I know we go back and replay it. But, end of the day, advice on that would be for me, my husband, he's in a leadership. He trains companies and people on a leadership, and he helps me with that. So he reminds me kind of my values, and he's the first to say, "Hey, Nab, maybe tighten up on this," but also not letting me beat myself up when I'm simply not aligned. Because one thing that stands out, like let's say just numbers, if you have 100 athletes, call it 99 are perfectly happy, have no problem, and then one has major problem with you. I was like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
I'm the same person. So, but I think giving ourselves grace that, we are human and we are gonna not even we're gonna make mistakes, but sometimes it's not even that you made mistake. It's simply
Yeah.
you're not aligned, and
Yeah.
let it go. Let it go.
Agreed. I think we are going to stop on that note. And again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time, your energy. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the value you are adding to sport, not just from your leadership, but from the values you are teaching your athletes and the information that you are sharing with other coaches, and the fact that you are willing to give of your time and your energy so other people can learn is so remarkable and so refreshing. So thank you very much. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will make sure we put Coach Nev's contact information and where you can find her on both her website and on Instagram in the show notes. Make sure if you enjoyed this episode, please share with a female athlete or coach you love. It's the easiest way we can continue to grow and continue to be impactful in this incredible world of girls in sport. Until next time.